And now we are being recorded. So good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. This is MVP Office Hours number 101, the one after the 100th, which was fun for everybody who attended number 100 last month. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can see my screen. If not, somebody yell at me. But we have the cover slide up here. Right. Just a brief touch on upcoming events because all the big ones have already happened for the calendar year, but that doesn't mean that there aren't already things in the works for next year, such as Tahoe Dreamin', weekend of January 20th and 21st in South Lake Tahoe. I did not reference the state because I don't know if it's on the California or Nevada side, but either way, that is a beautiful place to be in a beautiful time of the year, and Bill Greenhaw has been working really hard to get that going again. So if you have the opportunity to go to Tahoe in January, please definitely consider it. And you can always go to salesforce.com events to get information on world tours. And I'm Dale Ziegler, by the way. Probably should have introed myself on that one. Jackie is not with us this week. I believe she has some other meetings. And Jared is not joining us because he and his wife welcomed a little baby boy yesterday, or 2 days ago. So many congratulations to him. So y'all are stuck with just me and Jennifer, who will introduce here in a minute.
Stuck with both of us.
Yeah, this seems absolutely apropos. So just the general framework of MVP Office Hours. It's meant to be an open discussion. If you have a question, throw it out there. We hope we can get it answered. And if we can't get it answered on this call, we can either try and take it offline, or there's the MVP Office Hours Success Group, or we can try and bring in some people offline that might be able to. But our goal is to have no question unanswered. We meet on the first and third Friday of every month, so 21st being the third Friday, and then our next meeting will be in 2 weeks on November 4th. No question is too big or too small. Feel free to post to the community group or to Twitter. The handle is @MVP Office Hours. If you are not actively speaking, please mute yourself. And then there is the chat panel, or the chat component, that if you have a question, raise your hand. I have the chat window open on my other monitor here, so I'll see you and queue you up.
Okay, you're moderating that.
Yeah, I'll be moderating that. And then when you're ready to speak, just announce who you are so that we know who we're talking to. And this week, we are incredibly happy to be joined by Jennifer Wobser, Miss Salesforce One herself, fellow solo admin if you've seen our work together. And Jen, if you just want to give a quick 1-minute intro of yourself, and then we'll get going.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for those of you who joined today. This is kind of a group therapy session for all of us. I welcome you to bring any questions that you have that Dale and I can try and answer. I've actually been in the Salesforce arena since 2002, and I became a solo admin in 2004 to 250 users. Now, I worked there for 13 years, so I have a lot of experience in being the only, or what do they say, the pole holding the tent up, and basically how just to solve, all the different scenarios that happen to you, whether it's, your users are just, frustrated, or you have management that's not talking to each other, and then the technical, just what can we do to solve these problems with Salesforce. Mobile is my specialty. I've had mobile since 2004, back on the BlackBerry, the blue one with the it was very wide and the black and white screen. And more recently, Salesforce One, and now I'm working with my Salesforce One, the customization of it, which is really awesome. And analytics is also part of, if I was to say where my natural talents were with Salesforce, it would be mobile and analytics. And Steve Moe and I talk a lot about how analytics is a way in Salesforce for those of us who are admins to make a lot of people happy with very, little adjustments for us to give people the information they need to do their jobs. So any way I can help in that arena, I'm more than happy. I have dabbled in Wave, and I am using analytics on Lightning right now. Currently, I work for a company called Daysworks, and they're a dev and admin shop. And so if there's anything that, we can't get solved here between Dale and I, we definitely have other people that we can ask. So I welcome you. Just, show us what you got here and see if we can help.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jen. So, with that, who would like to shoot off the first question?
And we can have a quiet Friday. We can meditate, too.
Maybe everybody is meditating and we just can't see it.
That's all right. This is a safe decompression space, too. If you just want to be on the line and listen, that's all right with me. I do also have a presentation that I did for the Cincinnati user group in September. I actually was able to present for 2 hours there, which is the longest I've ever been able to talk, and it was very interactive, but talking about page layouts between Lightning and Classic and how Lightning uses compact layouts, which are used in Salesforce 1. So whatever you make your mobile headers is what will be your Lightning headers too. And unless you've ever done all these things, it's kind of complicated. A lot of people will ask me, for example, I'm trying to configure Salesforce 1 or I'm trying to configure Lightning and I can't get the header to change. These same 3 fields or 4 fields are showing up at the top. And a lot of people don't know to go to compact layout, which is another type of page layout that does your header on every single page. So that was interesting for, about 50 of us to sit down and talk about how just, it's an even playing field right now with, all of us that have been admins for a long time like me, 12, 14 years, and then people that are brand new, and we're all having to learn these little nuances between, Classic and Lightning, and then how they play into mobile. So this is something that if anybody out there has questions about, I'm more than happy to answer. If you just, nothing is too small. There's no dumb questions. I actually learn a lot more from people who, ask me questions about, like people think I'm an expert because I've done it for so long, and actually it will take a new person to ask me a question to stump me, and really get me thinking, I never thought about it that way. Because right now we don't have just a layout. There is no page layout just for mobile that you can just go to your mobile users. Right now you have to really think about what you're doing in Salesforce between both interfaces and your mobile device. So that's food for thought.
And so along those lines, I have a question, and then I'll tee up Dennis here. He just chatted in. So, Jen, you might know this, or maybe it's a happy coincidence, or I don't know. But I use Salesforce for Outlook in my company. And so when let me see if I can get this teed up here, like walk and talk and drag over and not share company information, et cetera, et cetera. But the side panel of Salesforce for Outlook, when you click on an email and it tries to pull up who the contact details are, there's a few fields of information that show up before you can actually go click on the contact. Is that related to compact layouts?
Yes. Yes, a lot of it. Okay. And actually, I'm going to be really honest with you. I've moved over to the Google platform, so I haven't seen how the Salesforce for Outlook configures. But between, with the migration over to Lightning, and Lightning, I don't know, do you have Lightning enabled in your org just to play around with, as an admin?
Say that again?
Do you have Lightning enabled in your org just for you to use it?
No, I do have a sandbox that is intended to be Lightning. I mean, essentially it's what I used for my screenshots in my Dreamforce presentation, but no, in production we don't. Like no users, not even myself. We're not there. I'm exploratory, but
yeah, so you have to be really careful, because if you enable it, say just for yourself to use analytics, it will start using compact layouts all over the place. And this is something a lot of people don't understand. What I would do, since I haven't recently been in the latest version of Outlook, is I would create a secondary compact layout with like the fields that you want, make that the default, and see if it changes. See if it changes your result. If it doesn't change your result, then it's not that. But by default, this is one of the few areas where Salesforce decided to make decisions for us. So the compact layouts, when they were released, have a default that Salesforce auto-generated, and they're the same for everybody, but they're saying might not be our same, right? We might not want those 3 or 4 fields. So I think it's a good idea for everybody just to go into each of their objects and change the default compact layout to what would make sense for their company, even if it's just simple. Like with contacts, it just has the simple last name, first name, company name, phone number. If you just put those 4 on there, then you're going to be okay wherever it shows up. But right now, that's not what they pick, as you can see. So the default will stay in there, but then you just assign a secondary compact layout to use. And you can't have multiples. That's the thing, is you can't say, I want these people to have this compact layout. Well, there's an assignment, but if you start catering to everybody, you and I have had this discussion before. If you start catering to it like each person or each group of people want, and it's something as simple as contacts, you're going to make a mess for yourself. So I would just make it standard and say this is what you get for, everybody gets the same for now, because a contact's a contact, right? We usually just need the same fields for it, because you already have your page layouts to take care of, and so then you've got your compact layouts to take care of, and then you have mobile, and what you actually pick on compact layout, even though they're the fields that you think a user would want, if you look at it on mobile, are you even using mobile yet?
It's funny.
Yeah.
No, I do have a handful of users that have taken it on their own fruition, and the feedback I get is it's kind of slow. It's kind of takes a while, but they're trying to consume opportunities, which, as is famously known, 300 fields and 50 some odd validation rules wide on my on my org, and so it's a pretty hairy experience, and so that's something that I think anybody who's trying to deploy mobile definitely needs to think about. Is okay, if you're going with, if you can use compact layouts, what is the critical information? One of the things that I've had a hard time trying to sell, so I might just have to do it and seek forgiveness later, is the concept of moving a lot of that information into child objects.
Yeah.
And sorry, you're not going to get it all on one page layout on the desktop experience, but trust me, it will work better. So.
Do you kind of remember when I was telling you all this back, early 2014, when I tell you my mother would get mad because she didn't want to scroll all the way. We had 40 fields in the account, and I can't find it. We'll scroll down. Oh, I'm not scrolling down that far.
Right. Oh yeah. No, it's a very valid point. It's it doesn't matter that if it's an elder user, if it's a younger user, or whatever. I mean, you don't want to scroll. You don't want to have to search, especially on a mobile device. And if you have any
family members working there, you definitely don't want them mad at you, because it kind of ruins holidays.
Well,
we're talking about mobile. I don't have that problem anymore, thankfully, but I can see with your users, you're going to have the people that, I want to see the sales, or whatever your child objects are on there. Right. It's a lot easier just to go to that object, or to go to, the related items, than it is for them to actually they just won't do it. That's the problem. If it's too far down, they'll just like anybody else on your phone, you go down a couple of times, you're like, I don't see it, so therefore it doesn't exist, right? It really makes you think about what you should put on a page layout after, because in old school, Salesforce circa 5 years ago, is kind of how much content can we get on that page, right? Because they're sitting at their desk looking at it, how many ways can we work it? And then now it's changed. Now less is more. What do people need to do their job? And that's all they need, right? It's nice to have extra information, but you're the king of that. Nice versus needed, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a very fair point, and it is such a struggle and conflict between the administration side and the user side, because the users want it all, but they don't want to have to go everywhere to get it all, and admin is burdened with thinking about balancing what's optimal for the org, but what's also optimal for the users, and it's a hefty battle. Right. It is.
Yeah, so. That's something I hear from new admins, and that's just admins across the board. That's you're basically the neutral. You're the Switzerland of your company, right? Everybody's coming to you saying, fix this, and your job is how can I do this with minimal damage but give people what they need so that I can be part of the revenue generating process, but yet keep my workload as minimal as possible. And sometimes it's hard. I know I've laid in bed many nights figuring out, okay, we have 25 fields with sales statistics in them on the account. On mobile, they're never going to go down to the bottom and see all of those, but they need them, right? They need them when they're in front of a customer on a mobile device. So I like your idea of the custom objects, because that's what I did. I made a new custom object just called sales statistics, and I moved down all the sales about that account into that custom object, so when they wanted to know that, they could just go to that related list and see. And it works so much better. I put like all the quarterly sales, and I divided it by product group. And so if they just needed to say, like, it's almost like a mini report, right? I just told them what their sales were when they were in front of the customers, so they could just look on their phone. But if I would have kept that in the account object, that if they asked them that question, it'd be, okay, I'll wait till I get to my car or back to my hotel and, look it up on my computer or call customer service. Well, the competitor might call them in that, time that you're doing that and get that sale. So you might as well put it where they need it. I know your industry is a little bit different. Aren't the people that are using, so the people that are using your mobile right now, are these like sales reps, or are these people actually out like fixing the what would you call it, like the train cars?
No, it's sales. They're cruising through their pipeline opportunities. So.
Oh, okay. So it's all sales. So right now you don't really have like, because we had field people installing refrigerator, the cabinets that carry product, and then we have sales reps, and then and then you have just like customer service people that are out doing, it really just depends on who your audience is, and that's what I think. An admin, I think we're really unrecognized as being as intelligent as we really are, because you think about how much time and effort goes into, you have to be somewhat of a detective. Okay, who are the people that I'm working with? What do they need? What are they doing? How are they making their money? How can I make Salesforce do what they need with as little fields as possible, as little clicks as possible or touch as possible, and have them make money quickly? And that's, it's a challenge, but everybody in our field seems to be able to do that well. And I don't know exactly what we call that skill yet, but trial by fire, or we seem to be the best at it. Now, did you try that with those compact layouts to see if it affected it?
I will offline. I'm not gonna bore people with a walk and talk of my org and my Outlook. So
if you just type compact up in your settings, it'll show you all your compact layouts for every object in there. So gotcha. I always recommend to everybody that just one day when you have a little bit of time, and I know that's kind of funny in a sense, but sometimes we have time, just go through all your compact layouts and change the defaults to what you want them to be. And fair warning too, sometimes when they're on mobile, you pick 3 or 4 fields, it may cut off because there just may not be enough space. Or if you have, an account name or a company that's really long, it may not look that great on mobile. So you really have to think about those things, I just say, do it, experiment with it, get your base fields up there, and then, if anybody complains, well, it's cutting off or it doesn't look right, then try case by case. Most of the time, I think your users won't even, that's something that we would look at and say, wow, I don't like the way that compact layout looks, but your users are still getting their information. So that's what matters. And like I said, that's also in Lightning, even though that compact layout affects your mobile and your Lightning, they don't actually work the same. So mobile, scrunches it into the header on the top of each of your objects, where Lightning has a lot more space and actually tells you which field. So if you put, contact name, it's going to say contact first name, and then so it actually tells you which fields are up there. So it's very, in the future, when we're all moving over to Lightning, you'll be really happy that you had the experience with the compact layouts now, because then when that happens, you'll understand more how they work, because they're going to be a necessary part of how you do your pages in there. And this is something I just like learned on my own this summer, just doing Trailhead and doing the Trailhead modules and playing around with Lightning, because obviously I don't have that 13-year org anymore in Lightning. But when I started looking at it, I thought, wow, this is real familiar from what I was doing in mobile. And now that I'm dabbling in Lightning, well, I'm really glad that I learned how to do compact layouts already, because I'm going to be doing them for the rest of my admin life in Lightning, right? So that was, that's at the end of our user group in September. That was the biggest takeaway is, just stay one step ahead of the curve, and that way you'll be prepared. And, we can always, as an admin, being a little bit prepared is always a good thing.
Yep. All right, well, we have 3 questions lined up in chat. And
cool.
Yeah, so we'll bring in Dennis first. General question on Dreamforce and Salesforce 1 and Analytics. What were some highlights from Dreamforce 16?
Ooh, the highlights? Which one? I mean, like, highlights as far as, like, shiny things, or highlights like what's, like, the juice here of what makes analytics run?
Dennis, jump on if you want to add more clarity, granularity to that.
Yeah.
At a high level for those of us who missed Dreamforce or maybe attended and were unable to attend Salesforce 1 or analytics sessions, kind of what are the kind of major things or major announcements or features or things like that?
Do you want to take some of that, Dale, or I'll take it?
You can. I mean, the big highlight obviously that I caught was Einstein, and then my head was in a bazillion different places that week. So, but focusing on like analytics and mobile, I'll definitely give you the floor on that one.
Yeah. So you weren't there, but let me just tell you. Imagine being in a place where like everybody you know from like the internet, like from social media, and then our community is all in the same place, and there's 50 different things we can do every hour to learn about Salesforce. It's incredible, but at the same time, it's a lot of information. So if I was to put all that information that I saw in your category through a sieve, I'd say the biggest thing that I learned, well, first of all, there was a huge upgrade to the analytics in Salesforce 1 right before, like the release right before Dreamforce. And I don't know if you saw it, but they work more like the Salesforce 1 and Lightning are starting to look a lot more similar, and you don't even have to have Lightning on for it to do that, which I love that fact. Like it just does it on its own. But if you go to like a chart on Salesforce 1, you can look at the summed up report and the highlights underneath it. So it's starting to work a lot more like a BI tool than it is just regular analytics. And I like that because that means less of us making smaller dashboards and smaller reports just to push those statistics up. Now we can put a broader report and pinpoint the statistics easier. Same thing if you haven't enabled Lightning in your org, but you want to just play around with the analytics in it. The analytics are superior. They combine reports and dashboards together beautifully. It's almost as if you can have a dashboard with the reports on it. And so even if you don't put your users on Lightning, I would recommend, of course, safe harbor and all that fun stuff. Don't go destroy your org. But, if you can safely turn it on in a dev org and start playing around with the analytics just in Lightning, they're beautiful. Also, Einstein's going to play obviously a huge part of that. So you start thinking about all those scenarios, like the complex scenarios that we've never been able to do in regular Salesforce analytics, like outer joins, for example. I want to put two objects together that I don't normally get together and compare them. Einstein, from what I saw, is going to be able to let us think about the scenarios we've always wanted to report on and be able to pinpoint that information and pull it in. And then also, because you're setting the parameters, right? It just doesn't figure out what you need from your org. Like you as the admin is going to have to go in there and say, I need to see based on, invoices or opportunities or any kind of sales that you have in there, did this account buy more this month than last month? Did they buy more this quarter than last quarter? So some of those scenarios that we get asked a lot as admins is going to be able to be more defined because of Einstein. Of course, we don't have a ton of information on Einstein yet, but it appears that everything that we have in our admin head, on what we want to do, we can start actually getting it into processes against the objects, which will narrow down your data if you're, going against a lot of data. And then I also learned that right now, I didn't actually know this, but if you don't have Wave right now, you can actually buy user licenses to the Analytics Playground, which is like the mobile version of Wave. It has like the animated, how can I explain it? The different charts that are animated, and they move around based on what you want to see on them. So you can actually buy, say, a handful of those licenses for some of your power users or executives and have them have that without having to have like the whole entire, $1 million Wave product and, doing algorithms with JSON. So I think if I was back at my other company, I would have definitely talked them into buying a handful of those licenses because it gives you experience as an admin with kind of the higher level of analytic, viewing capabilities that there are. It's more on a BI level, and then at the same time you have users that are able, that executive that's out on the road that said, what are we ending the quarter with, and I need to know it now. And of course, you're either not in a place to go pull that up on your computer, or you haven't built that report, but they need to know it right that second. So if you have something like that on the phone pre-built, it's pretty intuitive. The user just taps on what quarter they want, and boom, that shows them, the sales, and then they can say, by what territory or by what person or the whole, product or the entire company. So that's some of what in the analytics realm. I'm starting to see also like a kind of a merge between all of it, like, mobile looking more like Lightning having beautiful analytics, Wave having beautiful analytics. Like I'm starting to see everything getting a little closer. I'm kind of hoping in the future we'll just have one giant awesome analytics package and we don't have to learn all the separate products, but maybe I'm hoping for too much, but someday, hey, we got Salesforce A, so, I always wanted that from 2002, so maybe an analytics package is possible. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, now go look at all that. When we get off of here, go look all that up.
That should occupy a whole weekend and then some. Thank you, Dennis, for the question. And so up next is Squire asking you specifically, Jen, how do you deal with multiple business units in a shared org when deploying Salesforce One? And Squire, you might want to be unmuted to maybe throw some more detail on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Really, we're relaunching our Salesforce One initiative, and we have five business units all using the system independent of each other. And while we have a little bit of overlap as far as objects, at the end of the day, they all have a different need. But the Salesforce One interface is really a one-stop shop, right? So how have you dealt with that sort of situation?
Okay, I had the same scenario. We had actually 3 divisions using the same data. It was a biopharmaceutical company. So, we have like our patient care, our hospital care, and then we have another one that just did like vaccine clinics. And I tackled this 2 different ways because it depends on who you're dealing with, right? Like I understand everybody you deal with is going to have a different personality type and then also different learning styles. And you have to take into consideration when you're doing this, who are your users and how, in your hierarchy of your company, are they the people that are going to be, if something goes wrong, are they going to talk to the highest person on the totem pole? Like who out of everybody do you need to keep the happiest in order for your job to go smoothly? Because if it's just, in my case, we always had, somebody that complained, like their thumbs were too big to use the iPhone and they hated, mobile. Well, that can be dealt with just fine. He's not going to go tell the CEO that, right? But if you have a national sales manager that's saying, I keep seeing all this data and I just need mine, and they're right there next to the CEO, that's not so good. So there's two ways that you can handle this. The first way is we actually had a back-end ERP system filling Salesforce. Do you have something else filling Salesforce for you, or is everything in there user-generated?
Yeah, in our case, everything's user-generated. It's just that in our case, all 5 units are independent of each other. Like, they don't share data. It's just the instance of the sharing.
So that one wouldn't work for you, because you can always blame the ERP, which is, say, well, this is the way it comes out of the back-end system, so everybody's got to learn to share, right? So if they're all independent from each other, the only way that I can see you doing that is making some interesting sharing rules for each unit, and then each site. It's going to be a lot of work. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to, sugarcoat this, right? Because there's no way to sugarcoat it. But the compact layout is going to be your nemesis on here, because the compact layout, if you can keep everybody on general information like, account name, but I'm assuming, what industry is this, by the way?
Financial services.
Oh, yeah. So you have a lot of rules about who can see what, right?
Correct.
So you're probably more so regulated than the rest of us. Yeah, the only way is, so basically all the data is being dumped in, and right now they're all using it independently of each other, but they don't see what you see, right? You see all of it, and so they only need to see theirs. Yeah, the only way is that you're going to have to do solid sharing rules and page layouts. And what I did things different than a lot of people. For each of our divisions, I would take like who's in sales, and everybody that was the same, they had their data segregated and their page layouts, and then customer service had theirs, and then the inside sales reps had theirs. So each of the divisions, you're looking at probably 10 to 15 different types of page layouts on the regular page layouts, and then but the compact layouts, I kept them as standard as possible. Like I would get a lot of times they would ask me, I definitely need to see if this is acute or non-acute hospital up in the compact layout. Well, on the other record types that we had for the other divisions, a lot of times that wasn't even a hospital, especially if it's a patient, right? So I couldn't put that field on there. So I kept it as, even, I'm going to be honest with you, even like one time I just had like the account number up on the compact layout and let them scroll to get the first 4 fields down, because I couldn't let one division see what the other one had in those other fields. So unless somebody else had, I wish somebody would come up with an app that would make like mobile layouts for us and that would let us do that. I just don't understand why we don't have it, but it is what it is, and we got to stick together and get through that. I can, if you want to ping me after this, I think I have a screenshot of how I did that hierarchy too, of how I just divided everybody out. It was a combination of making profiles for each of those groups in the divisions, and then making a page layout for each, and then a shared compact layout.
And actually, Jen, that's really been the biggest challenge. Is our standard org does have that breakdown already, what you're suggesting, which makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about that.
Okay, good.
But at the end of the day, that one Salesforce interface, everybody has different access to different objects even, but from the Salesforce one, they all have to share the same interface. And there's not really, it doesn't sound like there's really any way around that, right? At least right now.
Right, because when you go to navigation in the setup pane, or when you just go to navigation, it's one navigation where you choose your object, right?
Yep.
And so if you choose the object, if you choose like all the objects that are available, the users are only going to see what they have access to. The only time that's going to cause problems is if there's an object that they both share, and then there's some, I don't want to say weirdness, but weirdness is the only way. It just gets some of the fields. The field may contain different information for one group than for the other. Sure. But you're absolutely right. The way, like, I don't know of, and if somebody had a way to do that, they have not told me yet how to get around that. Yeah. But that's, so for sanity check for you, I hope I helped that you're doing. It's a lot of work and a lot to keep track of, though. I completely understand that. But, I may take that up when we get off here. I may just ping the product manager and just kind of ask if there's anything on the roadmap for better controlling, what people have access to on mobile.
Yep.
And see if I get an answer, and then we can send it back to you afterwards, if that'll help.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, no problem. This is fun.
All right.
We get to talk Salesforce 1 on Friday.
All right. Well, thank you, Squire, for that. We did have a question from Alicia, who has since dropped off the call, but to probably help everybody. Can you recommend any Trailhead modules?
Oh, yes.
Since you're
Don't
like,
just
what,
say all
100?
of them either.
Right, yeah, don't say all of them. Because you're at like 100-something now, aren't you?
Yeah, that was my goal for Dreamforce. I'm at 103 right now, and thank God they put those new 30 out because I was down to all the hard ones.
Well, strong work, but what would you recommend?
Okay, so good for me, and actually I just had this conversation with my brother who just decided he wanted to be an admin after going to Dreamforce. He's always been in sales, and so I would say do the Drucker School Trailhead modules because you actually receive a MBA certification for completed credits with it, and it's from a legit school, and it's recognized by recruiters, and can help you in your job during your review. So I say if you're going to start, because I'm assuming everybody on this call, we're not brand new to Salesforce in general, right? So we're not, needing intro to CRM. Like you can do that one, but we're living the dream. So those 3 modules give you that certificate, and then you can say you're working on your MBA. And actually, I looked it up, and the rule is if you've completed any credits on your MBA, it doesn't matter what your schooling was before you started that. It's still valid. Like you don't have to have a bachelor's in business to start an MBA. So I was really excited to do those modules and receive that and say, wow, I'm working on my MBA. Isn't this great? And it works well, in a workplace too. So I would say start with those only because you get a physical certificate with them. And then I would do if I had to say top 3, I would do, the latest releases, anything that's relevant to what you're working on right now because, the release notes are just so long. And then if you have your certification and you have to take, that just reminds me, ours is due in 3 days, right? So you have to take your maintenance test. I noticed that I have a lot easier time passing my maintenance test if I take the modules for the latest release. Oh, you pulled Drucker up, great. So this is what it's not the easiest to find. You may have to search for Drucker because it isn't going to say in Trailhead, here's the modules that come with the certificate because they don't know how long they're going to do this program. It's basically a pilot program. So you can just type Drucker into the search, and there's 3. You can do them in any order. And once you complete them, it'll give you a link to fill out a survey about it. And once you fill out that survey, they send you a digital certificate. And I think now when I took mine, they were giving free certificates up to 500 people. I don't know if they've hit that limit, but even if they've hit that limit, I think it's $25 if you want, a physical copy of it. I've got mine on my desk. It's really, really nice. So that's what I would do. And also, I would send them during the feedback process after you completed these Trailhead modules. I would definitely let them know how much you like these because they're actually trying to decide right now if they want to do more and complete, to where you have another element of being an admin paired with business, business curriculum. I didn't go to business school, just so you know. I actually have liberal arts degree. So when I took these modules, I found that I wish I would have had them in the beginning of my career because they talk a lot about, just a lot of verbiage and business concepts that we do as admins that I never knew the proper terminology, and it could have helped me in conversations with executives because I'd say, this chart shows that sales are not as good as last sales, and they're like, huh, and if I would have used our channel management strategy is not, meeting our customers' needs, the executives maybe would have took me a little bit more seriously. So I highly recommend these, and I think everybody who takes them should should tell Salesforce we want more because, it helps us on our level being an admin, but at the same time, you're getting college credits for it. So why not do both? And maybe someday we'll have a full MBA in here. And then, of course, we have, like I said, the release notes. And then whatever's relevant to you, like if you're doing mobile for the first time, or you're doing analytics, or your company bought Wave, or you want to learn how to do a flow, I would kind of jump around and do what's relevant, because I found that when I didn't know how to do something, and believe it or not, somebody has been doing this as long as I have, I still run into things that I've never even, I haven't done it until I had a reason to do it in Salesforce. I'll be honest with everybody, I'm not that great with the Service Cloud, because we had an ERP doing our Service Cloud. So I had to set up a console, and I didn't even know how to do that because I'd never done it before. But I did the module, and the module showed me how to do it. I could go right in there and build it. So there's a lot of content in here that not only are you getting the training and the badges and the fun part, but it'll also teach you how to do things that you've never done. Because, in the old days, we didn't have a community and everything, so you just had to, it's trial and error. And you did that, 50 times sometimes to try and get it right. Now there's a module that if I do the steps, helps me to do it the proper way. So much easier in less time. So that would be my recommendation. What about you, Dale?
So Stu posted in the chat, and so I have it here. It's Salesforce One rollout, and Julie also Julie also posted that the innovation solution modules are great as well. I'm a humble enough person to admit that I only have 26 badges at this time, and I believe one of my active modules. Oh no, okay. So I logged in last week and saw that one of my open modules was summer 16, and of course we're now in winter, so I was a smidge embarrassed about that. I finished it, did not share it to Twitter because I did not want to look like that guy who falls behind. But I honestly, when I finally jumped in, but no, when I hopped in earlier this year, I went down the technical functional path of, okay, I'm going to start over again as an admin. So I went through admin, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And
that's so you. You just said, I'm going to follow the correct path. Hear me, I jump all over the place. The right brain versus left brain.
but I was so glad that I did, because I'm looking at admin beginner right now, and it was somewhere in there pretty early on where it talked about you could do a Visualforce help page. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think of that. When you create a new object and when you create new fields, you have the option to do that. And I just always went past it and thought, no, whatever. I'm good. I'm just going to follow the wizard. When I started, I had zero Salesforce experience before I got into my role. I didn't even know what it was. And I inherited an org that was unadministered. I was the first and still only person, obviously, to have actually been dedicated to it. And so I learned what I needed to know about my company. I went to the Admin 301 class because we were on professional, getting ready to upgrade to enterprise. And so I learned, you learn about workflow, you learn about the things that you can do in enterprise but not in professional, and that was it. And so it was really refreshing going down the beginner path and seeing, oh my God, I could have been doing all these things all this time. And I overlooked them, or maybe I thought they were too complicated, and then realized, oh wow, this is actually incredibly easy. I now have a few flows on Visualforce pages under tabs. So I can run my flows under tabs, and didn't realize that it was 5 lines of VF to point to the flow, which I love flow, but I had never done the VF connection. And now I as an admin, run several processes just right out of regular tabs. And so
yeah, what's funny about that is when I had to do a flow project a year ago, and I hadn't done any complex flows or put them in Visualforce pages, I took these modules as well to teach myself how to do it. And then once you do it, you why haven't I been doing this all my admin life, right? It's a lot easier once you do it than somebody telling you about it.
Well, and so also a great point Susan just posted in the chat. If I'm looking into something new like Shield, I do a Trailhead. I mean, yeah, thank you, Susan, our friend up north from Nebraska. Yeah, like I am just so beyond impressed what Chris Duarte's team has done in so little time to help literally everybody.
Just think if you had to do that Shield in your own company, like if you got like somebody in, say, IT said, hey, we're not doing this and we should be doing that, and you're the one that has to do it and you've never done it before. I was impressed with that module because I thought, okay, now we're getting a gray area of stuff that I don't usually mess around with because I'm old school salesperson. We didn't have all of this, right? And this is new for me. And I found I passed that and I was like, the way they explain it in there is a lot easier than if I would have just gone to the parts from Salesforce and tried to do it myself. You could probably even mess that up very easily. And here it's proper way to do it. You practice in your dev org. Once you have it down, you can start doing it in your regular org, if you feel comfortable with it. But at least you have a reference. That's what I'm thankful for. That now it's, if you get hit with one of those requests like we all do, that, guess what? Our AE told us there's this, right, in the org, and you as the admin are going to, enable that for us, and you're going, okay, but I don't have any experience with it. Well, guess what? You get to learn, and thank God we have this, right?
Right. Well, and so then on the other side, what's been very affirming is like you take the projects like the Build a Battle Station app. A couple of months ago here in Kansas City, we had an app builder workshop where some of our enterprise companies came in, and there were also some new and prospective Salesforce customers that came in, and it was an all-day workshop to build an app, find a use case, and they recommended go through one of the project Trailhead paths. And so I did it, and as I was like picking up the steps that they were telling you to do, it actually made me feel like I've been more valuable to my org than I've been giving myself credit for, because what they're calling a project, it makes you realize, wow, I've been doing this the whole time. So
we've been doing projects every day.
It was very validating and very affirming of, I am actually doing big things in my org. So
yeah, a lot of these projects are easy to, like, they seem daunting when you first look at them, and then once you really get into it, you're like, oh, this is, after I spent even the battle station. I'm going to be honest with everybody, when I saw the battle station, I really wanted the badge for it, so I'm like, I'm going to do this, right? And then I got in there, I'm like, wow, I have to make all these parts and pieces, and I don't know, I've got 2 hours or whatever I had, to do it, but then, all of us have in common that we love Salesforce. So once you start building it, you get into your rhythm, you start realizing all these projects, they may seem like on description somewhat overwhelming, or maybe I'll never have to do that, maybe I will. But then once you do them, you'll find out, like, I'm really glad I did that, because if I ever get asked, now I'll know how to do it. Or like you said, you could go in there and do one when you were being asked to do it and have that reference.
And so I will say that this one right here is my goal for the end of the year.
You're a better man than me.
I know I was of the mindset that Squire gives us the thumbs up in the chat. And 4 or 5 exclamation points. Stu, don't be afraid, we can do this together. I used to be of the mindset that everything should be declarative. If it's not declarative, that's too complicated. You don't need to do that. It's been very fascinating these last couple of years to watch the platform and functionality evolve. That, traditionally you thought of developers as the coders, you thought of admins as the password resetters, and then we get Flow, and then we get Process Builder, and everything in between, and you have Salesforce One, and you have Visualforce, and you have like those middle pieces that have really broken down the walls between admins and developers. But at the same time, there is still a very real need for both declarative and programmatic to coexist peacefully, and there's a lot of opportunity for people in both spaces to cross-train. A ton of opportunity, because even if you aren't going to get your arms around writing code, if you can at least read it and pick it apart and interpret it, you are still offering a ton of value.
Yes.
And so I feel like I could muddle my way through reading code and for the most part picking up what's going on. But if you have a free resource like Trailhead to go in and actually learn a little bit more about it, no, I mean, you're not going to be writing, apps upon apps on day one, but it's a place to at least get comfortable and learn the fundamentals and then start to challenge yourself with little things that eventually snowball, because even all of us who started as the declarative admins, maybe we knew how to create a field. Maybe we knew how to do a workflow on day one, but then we let ourselves be vulnerable enough to learn more and more and more, and now we know so much more than we did day one. Well, this is just a different thing to start with something on day one and let it naturally evolve at our own pace. And so
it also gives you templates. That's one thing I like about, because I get, any time I start saying it needs a package or something, I get scared and say, oh, this module's going to be too hard for me. But what I figured out after doing it, I had a little bit more insight into the mind of, I worked with developers at my last admin job. And a lot of times I'd have to articulate to them what they would need to do for me, and they would do, the part, write the code and whatnot. When I actually see what they do, it helped me articulate better to them. Like, okay, so I'm going to need it to do this. So when they would call me and say, okay, I'm at this stage, and now I'm creating the package which is the container to hold it, and I need to know where, like, this field's going to go, or what set of, data I need to pull in. I knew what they were referencing rather than it just being the mysterious land of coding where I'm saying, you let me know when it works, right? I could actually be part of their writing process because I know what part they were working on. With both Visualforce and with the Apex, it just helped me. It's like having that language I was talking about with the executives. You also should be able to converse with your developers, in your company, or sometimes, your company will hire partners that have developers that you're going to have to work with too. And so just knowing how the process works, or even having a template that you can kind of fiddle around with yourself and maybe get them to, give you the piece that you're missing to make it work, it's still bridging that gap. It's still putting you in the realm of a skill that you thought wasn't possible for you. And I think that's going to get easier as time goes on. I see Salesforce really going in a direction of bridging the two, because there's such a need for people that can code that the easier they make it, the more people come into the ecosystem. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, and Squire just put something I think very huge in the chat. Squire, why don't you just tell us what you typed?
Oh yeah, I just want to offer. So I had been a software support agent, an admin before I came to Salesforce for probably 15 years. I couldn't write write a single line of code before I started Trailhead, and now I write triggers and classes and Lightning components regularly, and it's because of Trailhead. But it's also Success and developer.salesforce.com. Those two resources, if you use them hand in hand with both the starting point of Trailhead and then kind of interact with the people on those sites, you can't help but learn. So everybody should be giving it a shot.
Yeah, just like if they tell you to build a flow that has, say, a Visualforce page behind it, and you're thinking, oh, I can't write Visualforce, but then you find out when you do the flow that it kind of writes some of that, it does it for you, but you wouldn't know that unless you did. That's great. I'm glad you shared that with us.
Yeah, I think everybody, like you said earlier, Jen, I think most of the people on this call are not newbies, but I think sometimes you kind of get comfortable in what you're good at, and if you take that extra step, you start learning how much more you could learn. So yeah, it's been great.
Well, it's just like Service Cloud. Service Cloud to me was like Apex. I'm like, oh, I've never done a console, right? Like, this is scary. And then I go in there and I'm like, why have I been afraid of this? This is not as hard as I thought, but it's just never have. That's, something about Trailhead that I tell them thank you all the time for, because it's giving me the opportunity to do real life, examples and areas of Salesforce that I would never have the opportunity in my job because it's not something I do. But now I have that skill. And hey, we can't ever have enough mad skills, right?
So I will just point this. We're down to 4 minutes, so I'll point this last one out. Sona put or mentioned in the chat or asked for report and dashboard Salesforce One, which module would you recommend? So I just did a search on reports, and you have reports and dashboard module. You have and you have the Lightning Experience reports and dashboards because they're the same, but they're different. Don't you love it when technology does that? And then there's a super badge on reports and dashboard specialists. So once you make it through some of those, some of the shorter modules, work your way towards the super badge. So
the base reports and dashboards in there I recommend to a lot of people, especially I talk to new admins. I remember those days, right, when you're just kind of, where do you start? And that has some good starting points. I probably worked for 6 months with the Trailhead team on that, talking about in the old days, how I learned how to do that by just making smaller reports and making them bigger and bigger and seeing how the data changes. If you take that module, it lays out just how to make base reports and how to place them into, dashboards, which is something that is really hard for another person to explain to somebody without you doing it yourself. So I highly recommend that if that's an area of Salesforce either that is a pain point for you, you've never done it, and you know that management is going to ask you to do that. It also lies a little on the analyst side more so than, because we're also business analysts as admins. And if you're having, push in your company for you to go more on that side, there's a lot of really good information about just thinking about, what your users need to see and why they need to see it, because any one of us could go in there and build a report right now. I don't think it's going to be a good report, but we could go build a report. It's not hard. But making a report that's meaningful to your users or to, who is actually going to be using that data is a different level. So we tried to pair both together in here, the technical and the reasoning behind, because when they first decided to do this, I had said, well, I remember when I first started Salesforce, I probably made 200 different dashboards, right? I was like, oh, wow, look at all this data for everybody, right? And I went into a meeting and one of my executives said to me, you're drowning us in data. And I was like, how can I be drowning? I gave you all the data. I'm not drowning you. It's awesome. But it didn't tell them what they needed. And so I totally missed the boat. But, that's what happens as admins. This is what we do, right? It's taking that next step of going, yes, I could build it, but am I building something useful? And am I helping to bring ROI? Am I paying for myself in what I'm doing? So that's something to think about as well as when you do this module, apply the steps to your own company. Okay, if it's going to tell me to do this certain report, how could I do that same thing in my own org that would actually benefit us? And then that's bringing you into the analyst realm, which is, awesome. There's huge emphasis on that right now, especially, we're hearing all about data science and, even with Einstein, but a lot of us admins have been doing that already. We're just doing it with, formulas and workflows and reports and dashboards and mobile, we're doing Einstein already, but doing it, just in bigger pieces and having just something that says, what do you want your users to see from each object, and let's push it in, So I kind of say reports and dashboards is if you can get that down, your Einstein's going to be a cakewalk for you.
Well, thank you. Well, all right. We are at the top of the hour. I think this has been an absolutely huge session.
We could talk about this all day. This is a broad topic here, and then Trailhead alone, I'm happy. You guys make me so happy.
Well, and I'm gonna close on a comment that Stu put in the chat. Wobzer is freaking smart. She is an awesome admin and BA, and I think we all agree with that. So I think that is the perfect way to close out.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for jumping on. Thank you, Jen, for being part of this, being our special guest.
No problem at all.
Our next call will be in 2 weeks on Friday, November 4th, same time, 11 Pacific, 1 o'clock Central, because I'm geographically centric like that. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. I don't know who the next guest is. I'm pretty sure we've lined them up. I just don't know who it is. But we will have one. Don't fret. So I hope everybody has a great weekend, and thanks for jumping on, and we'll chat next time. Post any questions to the success group and the Twitter handle. So thank you.
Thank you.